everybody. I am your host, Minsu Choi, and welcome to the Inevitable Church Foundation series. The videos in this series are meant to give a contextual overview of what the channel is about and what the aim of the content ultimately is. As you watch these particular episodes, hopefully you'll gain insight into some of the major principles of my research. You'll hear some of the behind-the-scenes stories of how these ideas have taken shape over time, and perhaps some of this content will be relevant and useful, inspiring and encouraging you in your faith and in your ministry. This channel has its roots in my doctoral research at Portland Seminary as I pursue a Doctor of Ministry in Christian Semiotics. And for the last 3 years, I've had the opportunity to build a project dissertation that focuses on the intersection of Christian faith, culture, and technology, and specifically technological forces that are creating a historically uncommon sociological phenomenon today called a network revolution. It's clear that technology is outpacing us and our ability to assimilate it. Iterations from major categories of technology are swelling up and converging together, and now it feels like every day a new disruption or a new breakthrough in tech is about to take and shape our work life, our schooling, as well as our relationships and communities. If you've ever thought that tech is pushing us towards a more disruptive and fractured era of human history, you're not alone. That's definitely what I am observing as a semiotician. The world feels very much like it is inverted and is firmly rooted in midair. And I think especially as the church, you're wondering what God is up to in this moment of history. It seems so chaotic. It seems so frantic. How is all of this a part of the cosmic story that God is orchestrating and telling for his own glory? And what's our place as a people that find ourselves called into this world, but not to be of this world? And all of these questions eventually lead me to this overarching question. Given this brave new digital world, what is the relationship between our orthodoxy or faith and our orthopraxy, our ethic? Do we understand how technology is affecting discipleship, evangelism, faith education, theology, community building, and cultural engagement? Are we aware of how technology aids us and hurts us in bearing fruit? And what ministry practices and principles that used to be very commonplace and effective in a lot of American churches, perhaps they're still being used today? Which ones are quickly becoming outdated, ineffective, and even counterproductive because technology is shifting the conditions of how our societies are forming? The classic relationship between substance, the essential characteristics of Christianity, and form, the diverse expressions of those characteristics, is a central mystery that the Inevitable Church is exploring. And the primary thesis, if you will, of this channel is that the form will need to rapidly transform. Our churches will go through a reorientation and a rebuilding, and that will create a lot of tension and conflict between churches as well as within churches. Within human history, every new age has brought a brand new set of needs, opportunities, and problems for the pioneers and explorers that are called in that time. In my program, the Need, Opportunity, and Problem, or NPO, is the cornerstone and the central focus of this project. It's what I spent over the last couple years exploring, testing, and refining. So here's the NPO of the Inevitable Church. The modern network revolution is shifting our primary medium for social interdependence from print to digital, which is reforming culture, including the church, and is creating a critical need for innovation in ministry strategies, recontextualization of orthodox biblical principles, and the acquisition of digital-based expertise and competencies for modern discipleship, evangelism, and community building. In this NPO, the first part of my research was focusing on how a network revolution affects societies sociologically. One of the last world-changing network revolutions was in the 1500s when the Gutenberg printing press was invented. And historians have observed how this invention revolutionized every major category of society in Europe. It was not just literacy and education, but scientific research, global news, banking, politics, the arts, and even religion itself. When Europe went from a culture of orality or speech-based to a culture of print, an incredible amount of disruption occurred that led to major historical events like the Protestant Reformation and the scientific revolution. Today's network revolution from print to an AI, blockchain-driven metaverse is going to make what happened in the 16th and 17th century look insignificant in comparison. For example, let's talk about the Protestant Reformation briefly. An unintended consequence of print was that it undermined the incredible amount of power and authority the Catholic Church had accrued over the last few hundred years. Martin Luther utilized the technology of print. He did not just famously nail his 95 Theses to the doors of All Saints Church in Wittenberg, but he copied what he wrote and distributed it across Europe. And because of that, he gained an immense amount of support and protection from those who also opposed the Catholic Church. Technology of the printing press was a crucial vehicle to spread his message and to expose the errors of the church in that time period. And consider the response from the church in the years following. Not only did they attempt to silence Martin Luther and his followers, the church tried to undermine all manner of progress regarding printed materials. They censored and burned books, they tried to keep the Bible from being so accessible, and they generally tried to impede anyone who was trying to utilize the printing press. We know the power of books today. We can't imagine a world without access to writings. We have built our entire society on our ability to accurately and reliably pass information to one another using the medium of print. We often give so much credit to Luther's convictions and his theological resolve, but it was Martin Luther's radical use of print technology, I would argue, that allowed him to create a movement in opposition to the church that swept across all of Europe. It would be hard to argue that individuals like Wycliffe and John Huss had any less conviction or motivation for church reform. They simply did not have the tools that would allow them to balance the power in their favor. Fast forward today, what if the same story is happening again? In America, the church has spent a long time in the cultural spotlight. What if today's shift to digital is undermining the power and influence of the established religious orders of today? That would be a natural reason for churches to dismiss and denounce the digital medium. What if the secret motivation underneath all that prudence and wisdom was really a preservation of power? And what if God is actually calling us to think and live digitally? How do we know if we are being faithful or disobedient? We certainly need a spirit of humility and an open-mindedness as the church continues to progress in culture. We need biblically informed innovation. We need to be guided by the gospel of Jesus Christ. We need knowledge and discernment that allows us to read the signs of today correctly and to properly recontextualize truth. To do that, we must begin exploring the possibilities that technology is affording us now as well as into the future. And so this is the vision of the inevitable church, to be faithful to God and to be faithful to the times that God is calling us to, both here in the present as well as the future. The foundation of this NPO is built on three ideas. First, the medium is the message. It's an idea conceptualized by the great thinker Marshall McLuhan. He spent much of his life's work breaking down the fundamental sociological effects that going from a print-based culture to an electrified telecommunication-based culture would bring. He noted massive differences in how societies work, learn, and come together between these two cultures. And he also said that there would be loss, that both orientations of society had things to gain and to lose. Secondly, when a network revolution happens, the primary medium used for communication and connection shifts and creates a social disorientation, a period of unrest, of fracturing, and of conflict as the old falls and the new tries to rise up in its place. This in-between period is chaotic because not all places transform at the same rate. And so we find ourselves in a period of time where, depending on your location, progress might be happening rapidly, like in urban environments, and you also have areas where progress has been incredibly slow. And out of these two categories of progress, you'll get people who have gone through either a metaphorical metamorphosis and they are flying, or you still got people who are still crawling and thinking about the old times. And lastly, this means new language of thought, new strategies, new signs, and new principles will be needed. And we'll have to learn how to recontextualize the gospel for this new world. We are entering into an age where pioneers and innovators of Christian faith will be most needed to cultivate the conditions for the new birth of salty, illuminating churches into this digitally transformed planet. In order to do that, we will need the heart of a novice once again, learning how to navigate with childlike faith, allowing our faith and traditions to guide us, but also being wise and examining the novel things and testing them. As Andy Warhol said, they always say that time changes things, but you actually have to change them yourselves. The Inevitable Church is the expression of these three ideas. Thank you so much for watching. You can support the channel by subscribing, hitting that thumbs up button and that notification bell, and dialoguing with me and others in the comment section below. Peace be with all of you in Christ.